Doctor arrives in the emergency room and sees a child identical to his daughter, who disappeared 2 years ago. Dr. David Thompson was having another ordinary Monday at Boston Medical Center when his life changed forever. The 45-year-old doctor, with graying hair and tired eyes from too many shifts, walked into the emergency room at 7 in the morning, expecting just another routine day. That's when he saw the girl on gurney 3. His heart nearly stopped. There lay a child of about 8 years old, with the same curly brown hair, the same face shape, the same delicate features he knew so well. It was impossible, but she looked identical to his daughter Emily, who had disappeared 2 years ago during a trip with her mother. "Doctor, are you okay?" asked Nurse Jennifer, noticing how he had frozen in the middle of the hallway, his face pale and hands trembling. David couldn't answer right away. His eyes were fixed on the unconscious girl, who had been admitted after a household accident. According to the chart he'd quickly scanned, she had fallen down the stairs at home and hit her head. I need to examine this patient," he managed to say, still in shock. "Dr. Thompson, Dr. Michael is already handling the case. You weren't scheduled for pediatrics today," Jennifer tried to explain, but he was already moving toward the gurney. The head nurse, Mrs. Barbara, a 62-year-old woman who had worked at the hospital for over 30 years, sensed something was wrong. She had known David since he first arrived 15 years ago and had never seen him like this. "David, you need to step back. You can't treat anyone in this state," she said, firmly gripping his arm. But he couldn't. He needed to be sure. He needed to know if it was really her. During the initial exam, his hands shook as he checked the girl's vitals. That's when he saw something that made him lose his balance completely. There on the child's right arm was a small heart-shaped birthmark, exactly like the one his daughter Emily had, in the same spot, the same size, the same pinkish color. David had to lean against the wall to keep from collapsing. His legs gave way, and he felt as if the world was spinning around him. 24 months. 730 days since Emily had vanished along with her mother, Sarah, during what was supposed to be a weekend trip. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now back to the story. "Who's the child's guardian?" David asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "An elderly woman who identified herself as the grandmother. She's in the waiting room, very upset," Jennifer replied. David went to the waiting room and saw a woman around 60 years old, her graying hair tied in a bun, wearing simple but well-kept clothes. She fidgeted nervously and avoided eye contact with everyone. "Ma'am, I'm Dr. Thompson. I'd like to ask you a few questions about the girl," he said, approaching her, fighting to control his anxiety. "Is she going to be okay?" "Please, doctor. She's all I have," the woman answered, but something in her voice sounded off, almost rehearsed. "How exactly did the accident happen?" David asked, watching her every reaction. "She was playing at home and fell down the stairs, hit her head and passed out. I rushed her here," she replied too quickly, as if on autopilot. "And her parents? Where are they?" The question he dreaded most to ask. The woman hesitated for a few seconds, looked down, and muttered something about the parents being away on a business trip. David noticed how she quickly changed the subject, asking about procedures and when the girl could be discharged. Back in the room, David ordered tests that normally wouldn't be necessary for a case like that. MRI, CT scan, full blood work. He needed time to think, to investigate, to be sure of what was happening. "David, what's going on? These tests are excessive for a mild concussion," questioned Dr. Michael, the pediatrician originally assigned to the case. "I suspect something more serious. Better safe than sorry," David lied, knowing he was acting unprofessionally but unable to control himself. For the rest of the morning, he couldn't focus on any other patient. His mind kept returning to the girl in room 3. She had briefly woken up and looked at him with those brown eyes he knew so well. "Hi, Uncle Doctor," she had said, in a voice that made his heart stop all over again. It was the same voice, the same tone, the same affectionate way of speaking. Emily had always called him Uncle Doctor when they played doctor at home. This couldn't be a coincidence. The hospital administration called him in late that afternoon. Richard Wilson, the medical director, was clearly concerned about the excessive procedures David had requested. "David, I need to understand what's happening. The child's family is questioning the need for so many tests. They're talking about transferring her to another hospital," Dr. Richard said seriously. "It's a complex case. I'd rather be sure there are no neurological complications," David replied, trying to sound convincing. "Look, you're an excellent doctor, but you're acting strangely today. Do you want to talk about something?" The question came with genuine concern. David couldn't tell the truth. Not yet. Not without absolute certainty. But he needed more time. He managed to convince Dr. Richard it was just professional caution. That night he couldn't sleep. He kept replaying every detail in his mind. The birthmark, the voice, the facial features, the way she had smiled when she woke up. Everything was identical to his Emily. But how was this possible? Sarah had taken Emily to spend the weekend at her sister's house in Providence. They never made it there. The car was found abandoned on a rural road with no signs of violence but also no clues about what had happened. The investigation lasted months. David had hired private detectives, put up posters all over the state, appeared on TV shows pleading for information. Nothing. It was as if Sarah and Emily had simply vanished from the face of the earth. The next day, David arrived early at the hospital. The girl was awake, eating breakfast. When she saw him, she smiled in that way he knew so well. "Good morning, Uncle Doctor. Are you taking care of me today?" she asked, and David had to fight back tears. "Of course, sweetheart. How are you feeling?" he managed to reply, sitting on the edge of the bed. "Better, but my head still hurts a little." She made an adorable face, exactly like Emily used to when she was sick. "And what's your name, sweetheart?" he asked, trying to sound casual. The girl hesitated for a moment as if trying to remember. "Olivia. Olivia," she answered, but there was uncertainty in her voice that didn't go unnoticed. Just then, the supposed grandmother entered the room, carrying a bag of clean clothes. "Good morning, Doctor. How's our Olivia today?" she asked. But David noticed how she emphasized the name, as if reminding the girl of something. "Much better, but we still need to wait for some test results," David replied, watching the woman's reaction. "Doctor, with all due respect, I don't understand why so many tests. She just hit her head. Can't we take her home?" The tension in the woman's voice was evident. During the physical exam, David noticed other things that made him even more convinced. The girl had a small scar on her right knee, exactly where Emily had hurt herself at age 5 while riding her bike. She also had a slightly crooked tooth in her upper jaw, a unique feature he remembered perfectly. But there was more. The girl seemed to recognize certain words and phrases he used, words uncommon in an 8-year-old's vocabulary. When he mentioned caramel popcorn, she smiled involuntarily, as if recalling a pleasant memory. It was the exact kind of popcorn he always made for Emily on weekends. Dr. Michael approached him during lunch, concerned about his behavior. "David, the family wants to transfer the girl to another hospital. They say you're asking strange questions and ordering unnecessary tests. What's going on?" he asked directly. David knew he needed help. He couldn't handle this alone. Deciding to trust Michael, his friend of over 10 years, he said, "Michael, I need to tell you something, but you have to promise you'll help me," leading him to a quieter corner of the cafeteria. "Of course, David. You're worrying me," Michael replied. "That girl, I think she's my daughter. My daughter who went missing 2 years ago," David whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Michael fell silent for a few seconds, processing the information. "David, are you sure this is very serious?" he finally said. "She has all of Emily's distinctive marks, the birthmark, a specific scar, even the way she says certain words. It can't be a coincidence," David explained, showing old photos of Emily on his phone. Michael compared them to his memories of the hospitalized girl. The resemblance was striking. "What do you want to do?" he asked. "I need more time to investigate. Can you help me keep her here a few more days?" David pleaded. Michael agreed to support him, but warned about the professional risks they were both taking. That afternoon, David tried a different approach with the supposed grandmother. He sat beside her in the waiting room, and struck up a casual conversation. "Do you have other grandchildren?" he asked. "No, Olivia is the only one. She's special to me," the woman replied, but David noticed how she avoided giving family details. "What about her parents? You said they're traveling for work," he pressed. "Yes, they work a lot. That's why Olivia stays with me most of the time," she answered tensely. "How long has she lived with you?" David continued probing. The woman hesitated visibly before answering. About 2 years. Since her parents started traveling more," she said. But David noticed her dry swallow at 2 years. That detail made David's heart race. 2 years. Exactly how long Emily had been missing. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us newcomers. Now continuing. That night, David decided to do something that could cost him his career. He called Sarah, his ex-wife, who had moved to Washington, D.C. after Emily's disappearance. They hadn't spoken in months, but he had to tell her what was happening. "Sarah, it's me, David," he said when she answered. "David, why are you calling? Did something happen?" Her voice sounded tired, as if she'd just woken up. "Sarah, I need you to come to Boston. It's urgent," he said, trying to control his emotion. "What's wrong?" "You're scaring me," she replied, now more alert. "I can't explain over the phone, but I think I've found our daughter." The words came out haltingly, heavy with a hope he hadn't felt in 2 years. On the other end of the line, Sarah fell completely silent for several seconds. "David, you can't joke about this. You can't give me false hope," she finally said, her voice choked. "I'm not joking, Sarah. She's here at the hospital. She has all of Emily's features. Please, come," he pleaded. Sarah promised to take the first flight the next morning, but David could hear the fear in her voice, the fear of being disappointed, yet again. Through the night, David stayed for an extra shift at the hospital, officially to monitor other cases, but in truth to keep watch over the girl. He positioned himself to have a clear view of room 3, where she slept beside the woman claiming to be her grandmother. Around 3 in the morning, he heard the girl talking in her sleep. She seemed to be having a disturbing dream. "Mommy, where are you? I want to go home." "My real home," she murmured, turning over in bed. David felt a lump in his throat. She spoke of a real home, as if the place she was living now wasn't truly hers. "Daddy, will you find me?" she continued in her sleep, and David had to step away from the hallway to keep from breaking down. The supposed grandmother didn't seem to wake at the girl's murmurs, or maybe she was pretending to sleep. David kept watching until the girl settled and drifted back into quiet slumber. The next morning, a man arrived at the hospital claiming to be the girl's father. He was tall, dark-haired, around 40, dressed in simple but clean clothes. David saw him talking with the supposed grandmother outside the room and noticed how tense their conversation seemed. "Doctor, this is Robert, Olivia's father," the woman introduced him as David approached. "Nice to meet you, Doctor. I came as soon as I heard. How's my daughter?" The man extended his hand, but David sensed something off in his demeanor. "She's fine. But tell me, can you share a little about her? Habits, preferences, things a father would know about his child?" David asked, testing him. Robert hesitated visibly before answering. She likes playing with dolls and watching cartoons," he said, but the answers were too generic. "What's her favorite cartoon?" David pressed. "Oh, the princess ones." "You know how girls are," Robert replied evasively. David knew Emily had loved dinosaur shows, unusual for a girl her age. She'd never cared for princesses. "And at school? How's she doing?" he continued, testing. "Good. She's doing well in school," Robert answered quickly. But David noticed he didn't even know what grade she was in. Throughout the conversation, David saw Robert and the supposed grandmother exchanging nervous glances, as if silently communicating. Something was definitely wrong. Sarah arrived at the hospital around noon. David met her in the parking lot, and she was visibly shaken. 2 years of grief had left deep marks on her face. She was thinner, with dark circles under her eyes and hair that had begun to gray prematurely. "David, where is she?" were Sarah's first words. "She's in room 3. But Sarah, I need to prepare you. She doesn't remember us. At least not consciously," he explained as they walked through the halls. "What do you mean she doesn't remember?" Sarah stopped walking. "She believes that woman is her grandmother. They call her Olivia. But I'm certain she's our Emily," David said, holding Sarah's visibly trembling hands. They disguised themselves as visitors for another patient and walked down the hallway past room 3. Sarah caught a glimpse of the girl from a distance, sitting on the bed playing with a puzzle. Sarah broke into silent tears the moment she saw her. "It's her, David. It's our Emily," she whispered, gripping her ex-husband's arm to steady herself. "I knew it. I knew it was her," David replied, equally emotional. "But what happened? Why doesn't she remember us? And who are these people?" Sarah asked, still watching her daughter from afar. "I don't know yet, but we'll find out. Together," David promised. They spent the rest of the afternoon planning how to approach the situation. Sarah stayed at a hotel near the hospital, while David kept a close watch on the girl. That afternoon, during a routine checkup, the girl held David's hand as he took her blood pressure. "Doctor, sometimes I have strange dreams," she said, looking straight into his eyes. "What kind of dreams, sweetheart?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "I dream about a different house with a pink room and lots of stuffed animals. And there's a man who looks like you but younger," she said innocently. David's heart raced. Emily's room had been pink, and she'd had a collection of stuffed animals. And he did have more grey hair now than 2 years ago. "What else do you see in those dreams?" he asked gently. "A woman who used to sing to me before bed. She sang a song about a shooting star," the girl continued, closing her eyes as if trying to remember better. David could barely contain himself. Sarah had always sung a song about a shooting star to help Emily fall asleep, a song she'd made up when Emily was a baby. "And would you like to meet those people from your dreams?" he asked carefully. The girl opened her eyes and looked at him with a sad expression. "I would. But Grandma says they're just silly dreams and I shouldn't think about them," she whispered. Just then, the supposed grandmother walked into the room abruptly as if she'd overheard. "Olivia, you shouldn't bother the doctor with your stories," she said, though David noticed the tension in her voice. "Don't worry, she's not bothering me. Talking to patients is part of their care," David replied, watching the woman's reaction. "Even so, Olivia needs her rest." "Come on, sweetheart," she said, practically pushing the girl back into bed. David left the room more certain than ever that he was right. That woman was hiding something, and the girl clearly had fragmented memories of her past life. That evening, he and Sarah met at a cafe near the hospital to discuss their next steps. "David, we can't just accuse them without proof. We need solid evidence," Sarah said, trying to stay rational despite her emotions. "I know, but we can't lose her again. If they decide to transfer her to another hospital or just disappear..." David couldn't finish the thought. "Then what do we do?" Sarah asked. "Tomorrow I'll try a different approach. I'll be more direct with them, and you can try to get closer to the girl," he suggested. "How? I can't just show up and say I'm her mother," Sarah replied. "We can say you're a psychologist from the hospital, that we're assessing the psychological impact of the accident." David came up with an idea. Sarah agreed to the plan, despite the risks. The next morning, David arrived at the hospital determined to confront the supposed grandmother. He found her in the waiting room, nervously fidgeting with her hands. "Ma'am, I need to speak with you about Olivia," he said, sitting beside her. "Is there a problem, doctor?" she asked, visibly tense. "I've noticed some strange things in her behavior. She talks about recurring dreams, about a past life. This could indicate psychological trauma," David said, watching her every reaction. The woman grew visibly uncomfortable. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Olivia has always been a normal child," she replied defensively. "Ma'am, with all due respect, some things don't add up. She has certain physical and behavioral traits that are very specific. I'd like to ask a few questions about her background." David decided to be more direct. "What kind of questions?" the woman asked, standing up as if she wanted to leave. "For example, the birth certificate you provided. The date doesn't match some physical details I've observed in the girl." David lied, testing her reaction. The woman visibly paled. "I don't understand what you're implying," she said, but her voice trembled. "I'm implying that perhaps you haven't been entirely honest about this child's identity," David said firmly. At that moment, Robert appeared in the hallway, walking quickly toward them. "What's going on here?" he asked aggressively. "The doctor is making outrageous accusations," the woman replied, clearly agitated. "Listen here, doctor. I don't know what game you're playing, but we won't tolerate this kind of treatment. We want Olivia transferred to another hospital immediately," Robert said, raising his voice. "I'm afraid that won't be possible right now. The girl still needs medical observation," David replied, staying calm. "We'll see about that," Robert said, storming off toward the hospital administration. David knew he was running out of time. He hurried to find Sarah, who was waiting in the parking lot, disguised as a psychologist in formal clothes with a clipboard in hand. "Sarah, they're going to try to transfer her today. We need to act now," he said urgently. "What do we do?" she asked, visibly nervous. "You'll go in as a psychologist and try to get the girl to remember something. Anything we can use as evidence," David quickly explained. Sarah entered the hospital and headed to room 3. The girl was alone, as the supposed grandmother had gone to deal with the transfer. "Hello, Olivia," Sarah said, stepping into the room with her heart racing. "I'm Dr. Sarah, a psychologist at the hospital." The girl looked at Sarah curiously. "You're pretty," she said innocently. "You look like the woman from my dreams." Sarah had to use all her willpower not to break down in tears. "Can you tell me about those dreams?" she asked, sitting on the edge of the bed. "I dream about a woman with hair like yours, and she used to sing me a beautiful song. It was about a star falling from the sky and granting wishes," the girl said, closing her eyes. Sarah couldn't hold back any longer. She began softly singing the lullaby she used to sing to Emily. "Shooting star in the sky so blue, bring a dream sweet and true. Let my darling sleep in peace, in my heart, never cease." The girl's eyes flew open with recognition. "You know my song," she exclaimed, bouncing on the bed. "How do you know my special song?" Because I'm your mother, sweetheart. Because I'm your mother, and I've been searching for you for 2 years." Sarah could no longer hold back, embracing the girl. The girl seemed confused for a few seconds, but then instinctively returned the hug. "Mommy," she whispered. "Is it really you?" "It's me, my love. It's me," Sarah answered, tears streaming down her face. "Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing." At that moment, David entered the room and saw mother and daughter embracing. He approached slowly, tears in his eyes. "Emily," he said softly. The girl looked at him for a few seconds, as if processing fragmented information in her mind. "Daddy," she said hesitantly. "Are you the daddy from my dreams?" David moved closer and hugged them both, his family finally reunited. But they knew the hardest part was yet to come. "Emily, sweetheart, I need you to tell me everything you can remember about these past 2 years. What happened? Where were you?" Sarah asked gently. I remember being in the car, and then everything went dark. When I woke up, I was in a different house, and Grandma said I was Olivia, and that you had..." She stopped, unable to finish. "That we had what, sweetheart?" David asked carefully. "That you had gone away and weren't coming back. That I had a new family now," Emily said, starting to cry. "That's not true, my dear. We never stopped looking for you. We never gave up," Sarah said, stroking her daughter's face. "But I didn't understand. I remembered you, but Grandma always said they were just dreams. She gave me some medicine that made me sleep a lot and forget things," Emily continued to reveal. David and Sarah exchanged worried glances. Medicine to erase memories? This was far more serious than they'd imagined. "Emily, do you remember anything else? Remember anything? Other places you lived? Other people?" David asked. "We moved houses a lot. Grandma always said it was so I could have a better room, but I think she was afraid of something," Emily reflected. "And Uncle Robert isn't my real dad. He only came a few months ago. These details confirmed David's suspicions. They were clearly running, constantly changing locations to avoid being found. "Sweetheart, do you have any idea why they did this to you?" Sarah asked gently. "I don't know, but sometimes I heard Grandma crying at night and talking to someone on the phone. She'd say things like, 'I can't return her now,' and 'It's been too long.'" Emily tried to recall more details. Just then, they heard footsteps in the hallway. David stood up quickly. "Someone's coming. Sarah, hide in the bathroom. Emily, sweetheart, for now you need to keep pretending you're Olivia, okay?" he said urgently. Sarah hid, and David resumed his usual doctor's demeanor when the supposed grandmother entered the room, accompanied by a man in a suit. "Doctor, this is Mr. James Carter, our family's lawyer. We've come to take Olivia to transfer her to another hospital," the woman said, trying to maintain her composure. "I'm afraid the girl can't be transferred right now. We're still waiting for critical test results," David replied firmly. "Doctor, with all due respect, my client has the right to choose where her granddaughter receives treatment. You can't block the transfer without proper medical cause," the lawyer interjected. David knew he was losing the legal battle, but needed to buy time. "Of course, we just need a few hours to organize the paperwork and test results for the receiving hospital," he said. "Very well. We'll return in 2 hours to collect Olivia," the lawyer agreed. After they left, David rushed to get Sarah from the bathroom. "We have 2 hours to figure this out. I need to call the authorities," he said. "David, what authorities? We don't have concrete proof yet. It's our word against theirs," Sarah replied worriedly. "We have Emily. She can testify," David suggested. "She's a child who was manipulated for 2 years. No court will accept her testimony alone," Sarah argued. They needed more evidence. David had an idea. "Sarah, do you still have that baby photo of Emily showing her birthmarks?" he asked. "I do. It's in my wallet," she replied, pulling out the photo. "And do you have anything with her DNA, a personal item?" he continued. "I still have her toothbrush at home, kept in the bedroom," Sarah remembered. "Perfect. I'll request an emergency DNA test. The hospital has a lab that can process it in a few hours," David said. While David arranged the DNA test, Sarah stayed with Emily, trying to help her recover more memories. "Emily, do you remember our house? Your pink bedroom?" Sarah asked gently. "I do remember a pink room, and a bookshelf full of books. You read me stories every night," Emily began recalling more clearly. "And do you remember Buddy?" Sarah asked about the family dog. "Buddy, my golden puppy. Where is he?" Emily asked excitedly. "He's at home waiting for you. He was so sad when you left," Sarah replied, emotional. "I want to see Buddy. I want to go home," Emily said, hugging Sarah. "You will, my dear. You're coming home," Sarah promised. David returned with good news. He had managed to expedite the DNA process, and the results would be ready in a few hours. He had also contacted a hospital social worker, Dr. Rachel Miller, who was willing to assist with the case. "Dr. Rachel, this is a very delicate situation. We believe this child was kidnapped 2 years ago," David explained. "Dr. David, that's a very serious accusation. Are you absolutely certain?" Dr. Rachel asked. "I am, and in a few hours we'll have DNA proof," he replied. "Very well, I'll initiate child protective measures. This will give us legal grounds to prevent her transfer until the situation is clarified," Dr. Rachel assured. 2 hours later, when the supposed grandmother, Robert, and their lawyer returned for Emily, they were met by Dr. Rachel and 2 hospital security guards. "I'm sorry to inform you, but this child is under hospital protection until certain legal matters are resolved," Dr. Rachel announced formally. "This is outrageous. What legal matters?" the lawyer protested. "There are suspicions regarding inconsistencies in the child's documentation. Until this is clarified, she remains in our care," Dr. Rachel replied firmly. The supposed grandmother grew visibly desperate. "Please, she's my granddaughter. You can't do this," she began crying. "Ma'am, if she truly is your granddaughter, there's nothing to worry about. The investigation will confirm it," Dr. Rachel said. At that moment, David received a call. It was the lab with the DNA results. "Dr. David, this is the lab. The results are in," the technician informed. "And?" David asked, his heart racing. "There's a 99.9% match. She is definitely the biological daughter of the woman who provided the reference sample, the technician confirmed. David felt as if a massive weight had lifted from his shoulders. They finally had the proof they needed. Dr. Rachel, we just received DNA confirmation. Emily is indeed our daughter, he announced. The supposed grandmother collapsed into a chair, sobbing uncontrollably. Robert tried to slip away but was stopped by security. Now you're going to explain exactly what happened to our daughter these past 2 years, David said, staring directly at the woman. Between sobs and tears, the truth finally began to emerge. The woman, whose name was Margaret Johnson, was indeed Emily's grandmother, but through Sarah's mother. She is my granddaughter, yes, but not in the way you think, Margaret began to explain. What do you mean? Sarah asked, confused. Sarah, you have a sister. A twin sister your parents gave up for adoption when you were babies, Margaret revealed, shocking everyone present. Sarah was completely speechless. She had never known she had a twin sister. My daughter Jessica is your twin sister, Sarah. She always wanted to meet you but was afraid of rejection, Margaret continued. But what does this have to do with Emily's disappearance? Dr. Thompson asked, still processing the information. Jessica. My daughter Jessica was struggling with serious mental health issues, deep depression, suicide attempts. When she saw Sarah on TV searching for Emily, something snapped in her mind, Margaret explained, crying. She became convinced that Emily was the daughter she could never have. She started following you, observing the family's routine, and when she found out about the trip to Providence, she stopped, unable to go on. Go on? Sarah said firmly, still reeling from the revelation about her sister. Jessica intercepted you on the road. She pretended her car had broken down and asked for help. When Sarah stopped to help, Jessica had a breakdown and she took Emily, Margaret confessed. And Sarah? What happened to Sarah? Dr. Thompson asked, fearing the answer. Jessica said Sarah hit her head when she tried to stop the kidnapping. She was unconscious. Jessica panicked and fled with Emily, leaving Sarah on the road. Margaret revealed more details. That doesn't make sense. Sarah was never found on the road, Dr. Thompson argued. Because she didn't stay there, a weak voice came from the doorway. Everyone turned to see a woman who looked identical to Sarah but visibly thinner and showing signs of mental illness. It was Jessica, the twin sister. Jessica! Margaret exclaimed, surprised. What are you doing here? I came to return what isn't mine, Jessica said, looking directly at Emily. I came to return the daughter to her real mother. Where is Sarah? Is the Sarah who was with Emily the day of the kidnapping? Dr. Thompson asked urgently. Jessica looked at the floor, visibly disturbed. I am Sarah. I became Sarah, she confessed. After I took Emily, I assumed her identity. I lived as Sarah for 2 years. What do you mean? Sarah asked, horrified. When you hit your head, you were badly hurt. I took you to a hospital in another town, but you had amnesia. You couldn't remember anything, Jessica explained. And then? What happened? Dr. Thompson pressed. I convinced you that I was Sarah and that you were Jessica, that you were the sister who had kidnapped your own niece during a psychotic episode. Jessica revealed the shocking truth. My God, Sarah whispered, understanding the extent of the manipulation. For 2 years, the real Sarah believed she was me. She's in a psychiatric facility, believing she's the kidnapper, Jessica continued, confessing. And you took my daughter, pretending to be my wife. Doctor? Thompson asked, incredulous. At first, yes, but then I realized I couldn't keep up the lie forever. That's when I moved to Washington, D.C. and started avoiding contact with you, Jessica explained. But why are you here now? Why tell the truth? Sarah asked. Because Emily started remembering, and I couldn't live with this lie anymore. She deserves to be with her real family, Jessica replied, looking at the girl with genuine affection. And where is the real Sarah now? David asked urgently. At Pine Grove Psychiatric Center in Hartford. She's been there for 2 years, believing she's a mental kidnapper. Jessica provided the information. David immediately picked up the phone and called the center. After explaining the situation, he confirmed there was a patient admitted under the name Jessica Johnson, who matched the description of the real Sarah. "Let's go get her now," David said, determined. "David, wait. This is all so confusing. How can we be sure who's who?" the fake Sarah asked. "DNA. We'll run DNA tests on everyone." "That will definitively clear things up," Dr. Rachel suggested. While waiting for the new test results, David had a difficult conversation with Emily. "Sweetheart, the situation is complicated, but what matters is we now know where you've been and we'll be able to bring your real mother home," he explained. "But Aunt Jessica was good to me. She took care of me. I don't want her to be sad," Emily said, showing the natural kindness of children. "We'll help Aunt Jessica too, sweetheart. She's sick and needs treatment," David promised. The next day, David and the fake Sarah traveled to Hartford to retrieve the real Sarah. When they arrived at the center, David could hardly believe his eyes. There was his real ex-wife, but she didn't recognize him. 2 years of medication and therapy based on a false identity had deeply damaged her psyche. "Sarah, it's me, David." "Your ex-husband," he said gently. "I'm not Sarah. I'm Jessica, and I did something terrible," she replied, her eyes empty from so much suffering. "No, you are Sarah. You're Emily's mother. Jessica is your twin sister, who took your identity," David explained patiently. It took a long time and immense patience for the real Sarah to begin accepting reality. The center's doctors confirmed she had been a victim of severe psychological manipulation. "She'll need a lot of time to fully recover," Dr. Roberts, the psychiatrist overseeing her case, explained. 2 years of believing she was someone else caused deep damage to her identity. Gradually, with the help of photos, personal belongings, and especially Emily's presence, Sarah began recovering her true memories. "Emily? My daughter?" she said in a moment of clarity, hugging the girl. "Mommy, is it really you now?" Emily asked, confused by the two identical women. "It's me, sweetheart. I'm your real mother," Sarah replied, crying. The recovery process was long and difficult. The family needed extensive therapy to cope with the trauma of 2 years of separation and manipulation. Jessica was admitted for proper psychiatric treatment, and Margaret, who had been an unwilling accomplice, was devastated. "I just wanted to protect my daughter. I didn't know she had gone this far," Margaret explained, also needing psychological support. Months passed. Sarah was in recovery, relearning how to be herself and reconnect with her daughter. David remained present, not as a husband, but as a devoted father. "Daddy, why do people do bad things when they're sick in the head?" Emily asked one day during a family therapy session. "Sometimes people get very sad and confused, sweetheart. It's not their fault, and that's why we need to help them get better," David explained patiently. "Will Aunt Jessica get better?" Emily asked. "Let's hope so, and we'll visit her when the doctors say she's ready," Sarah replied, showing impressive emotional maturity after all the suffering. Throughout this process, Emily demonstrated incredible emotional resilience. Even though she had spent 2 years away from her family, she never completely lost memories of her true parents, and that was crucial for her recovery. "Dr. David, can I ask you something?" Emily said one day while playing at the hospital where it all began. "Of course, sweetheart. You can ask me anything," he replied. "If I hadn't fallen down the stairs that day, would you have ever found me?" she asked with surprising maturity for her age. David thought for a moment before answering. "Maybe not that day, sweetheart, but I would never have stopped looking for you, never," he answered sincerely. "So was it good that I fell?" she asked innocently. "No, sweetheart. It's never good for you to get hurt. But sometimes bad things can lead to good ones," he explained. A year after the reunion, the family had settled into a new dynamic. Sarah and David didn't become husband and wife again, but they built a strong partnership as parents. They lived in nearby houses, so Emily could always have access to both of them. Jessica had responded well to treatment and was in a stable phase. She had asked to see Emily a few times, always under medical supervision. "Aunt Jessica, are you feeling better?" Emily asked during one of these supervised visits. "I'm trying to get better, sweetheart, and I want you to know I'll always love you, even knowing you're not my daughter," Jessica replied honestly. "I love you too, Auntie. You took care of me when I was lost," Emily answered with the pure heart only children have. Margaret had also recovered from the shock and became a constant presence in Emily's life, now as her true great-grandmother. "Grandma Margaret, can you teach me how to make that cake you used to bake when I was Olivia?" Emily asked one day. "Of course, my dear, but now you're Emily, not Olivia," Margaret replied. "I know, but I liked that cake. And I liked it when you took care of me too," Emily said, showing it was possible to hold on to good memories even from a traumatic situation. 2 years after the reunion, on a sunny Sunday afternoon, the family gathered in Sarah's backyard. Emily played with Buddy, the dog who had patiently waited for her return. "David, do you think she'll ever fully get over all this?" Sarah asked, watching their daughter play. "She already has, Sarah. Look how happy she is, how she can talk about it without trauma. Children are more resilient than we think," he answered. "And us? Do you think we'll get over it too?" she asked. "We already have. We're a different family now, but we're still a family," David replied, smiling. At that moment, Emily ran up to them. "Daddy, Mommy, can I ask you something?" she said, breathless from playing. "Of course, sweetheart," they answered together. "Do you think other lost children will find their families too?" she asked. Sarah and David looked at each other, moved by their daughter's sensitivity. "We hope so, sweetheart. And you know what we're going to do? We're going to help other families searching for their children," Sarah replied. "How?" Emily asked, curious. "We'll tell our story to others, so they don't give up searching," David explained. "And we'll help doctors recognize when a child might be lost from their real family," Sarah added. From this conversation, the project that would change many other families' lives was born. David and Sarah created a non-governmental organization dedicated to helping reunite separated families, especially missing children. "Should we call it Project Emily?" Sarah suggested. "No, Mommy. Let's call it Project Reunion, so other children will feel included too," Emily suggested, once again showing her precocious wisdom. Project Reunion became a national reference for family reunification. David developed medical protocols to identify potential cases of missing children in hospitals, and Sarah created psychological support methodologies for reunited families. Emily, still a child, actively participated in the project, sharing her story with other children who had gone through similar situations. "Don't be afraid to remember your real family," she would say during the meetings. "Remembering doesn't hurt, it helps you find your way back." At one of the project's gatherings 5 years after the Thompson family's reunion, a woman approached David with tears in her eyes. "Dr. Thompson, my son went missing 3 years ago. I was losing hope, but your story gave me the strength to keep searching," she said. "Never give up," David replied. "As long as there's love, there's hope." 6 months later, thanks to the protocols developed by Project Reunion, the woman's son was identified in a hospital in another state, in a situation very similar to Emily's. "Daddy, another family has been reunited," Emily cheered when she heard the news. "Yes, sweetheart, and it all started because you fell down those stairs," David teased. "No, Daddy, it all started because you never stopped loving me, even when I was lost," Emily answered with a maturity that always amazed the adults. That day, David fully understood the meaning of unconditional love. It wasn't just about never giving up the search. It was about believing that love always finds its way home. In the following years, Jessica made significant progress with the right treatment. She never lived independently again, but managed to build a healthy relationship with her niece and sister. "Sarah, I'm so sorry for everything I did," she said during one of their family therapy sessions. "Jessica, you were sick. What matters is that we're all together now and can heal," Sarah replied, hugging her twin sister. "And I got an aunt," Emily added, always finding the bright side. Margaret became an active contributor to Project Reunion, using her experience to counsel other families in complex situations. "Sometimes things aren't what they seem," she would say. "It's important to investigate carefully before judging." By the time Emily turned 15, Project Reunion had reunited over 200 families. At her birthday party, she gave a speech that moved everyone present. "I could be sad about losing 2 years of my childhood with my real family," she began. "But I choose to be happy because those 2 years taught me the value of family and gave me a purpose in life. Today, I understand that my story isn't about a girl who was kidnapped. It's about a family that never gave up on love, about a child who always knew where her true home was, and about how love can turn even the hardest situations into something good. And that's what I want to talk about for the rest of my life, that love always finds its way home. David and Sarah sat in the audience, crying with pride for the daughter they had raised. Beside them, Jessica also wept, but they were tears of joy for having contributed, even indirectly, to shaping such a special person. After the speech, when everyone had left, the family gathered in the backyard, the same spot where they had talked years before about how to help other families. "Mom, Dad, can I ask you something?" Emily said, now a mature and thoughtful teenager. "Always, sweetheart," they replied, as they had for years. "Do you think all of this happened for a reason?" she asked. David and Sarah looked at each other, reflecting on everything they had been through. "You know, sweetheart, I believe it did," Sarah answered. "I believe our story happened so we could help other families, so you could become the incredible person you are today. And so we could learn that love is stronger than any separation," David added. "So was it good that I got lost?" Emily asked, echoing the question she had asked years before. "No, my child. It's never good for you to be away from us," Sarah replied. "But it was good that you found your way back, and it was good that we never stopped searching." At that moment, under the stars of a clear Boston night, the Thompson family understood that their journey wasn't about loss and reunion. It was about the strength of family love, the resilience of the human spirit, and how even the hardest experiences can be transformed into something beautiful and meaningful. Project Reunion continued to grow, inspiring similar initiatives in other countries. Emily decided to study psychology to specialize in family reunification, following in the footsteps of her parents, who had turned their own pain into a lifelong mission. "One day, I'll help other children the way you helped me," she told her parents. "You already are, my child, from the moment you decided to turn your story into hope for other families," David replied. And so, the story that began with pain and separation became one of love, hope, and purpose. The Thompson family had discovered that sometimes we lose the people we love not to hurt us, but to teach us the true value of love and show how it can multiply to benefit the whole world. Years later, when Emily had become a licensed psychologist and was actively working with Project Reunion, she wrote a book telling her story. The title was simple but powerful: "Love Always Finds a Way." In the dedication, she wrote, "To my father David, who never stopped searching. To my mother Sarah, who never stopped loving. To my Aunt Jessica, who taught me about forgiveness. To my great-grandmother Margaret, who showed me that families can form in many ways. And to all the families still searching, don't give up. Love always finds its way back home." The book became a national and international bestseller, inspiring public policies for finding missing children in several countries. But for Emily, the greatest success wasn't the sales or recognition. It was knowing that somewhere in the world, a lost child was being found, a family was being reunited, and love was, once again, finding its way back home. The end. Now, tell us what you thought of this touching story and where you're following us from. Do you believe family love can truly overcome any separation? Leave your honest comment and share your thoughts with us. Don't forget to like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other moving stories like this one. Your participation means so much to us.